Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I hope your day is starting off just peachy. Why did I use the word peachy today? I don't know. Behind me is a pic of my two beautiful little doggies. Marty and Willow are their name, and I just finished taking them for a walk. This is an older pic, and now they're having a nice nap on the couch. They're filthy, but they're napping on the couch. I'm going to share some positive news with you, and I always like to present data and news that's relevant and real rather than just spouting opinions. I peruse all the news headlines and read a lot of articles, and I have to say that most of them are just opinions or quotes from politicians. And if it's a quote from a politician, it's usually an opinion. There's a lot of spin, and there's usually doom and gloom mixed in there. We are literally swimming in a sea of BS. But I did find one article that I want to share with you that actually quotes people that know what's going on. Lead economists in our country, what they're saying about our economy. And incidentally, thanks to the hundreds of you who are posting pictures of magnificent places in our country, like this one behind me, which was posted on the I Choose Canada group. I'll leave a link for that group in the video description. Amazing pictures. Keep posting them, and I'll keep showing them. Now, reported here on Yahoo Finance, a financial website, an article by the Canadian Press. And like I said, they don't just provide spin or the opinions of politicians. I'm going to read you some quotes in this article from some of our top economists and what they're saying. And the title of the article is, Canada's economy is showing resilience against US tariffs. Why? And in the words of one of our, or perhaps our top economist, the governor of our Bank of Canada, his name is Tiff McCallum, he said, and I quote, some resilience. Those were the two words Bank of Canada Governor Tiff McCallum used last week to describe how the Canadian economy is holding up under the weight of US tariffs. Now, in the Bank of Canada governor speak, some resilience is very positive. He doesn't just spout rhetoric. He doesn't just say everything's broken or everything's great. He analyzes all the financial data, everything that's happening within our country, like a hawk from an economic point of view. And in his statement, he says that our economy is showing some resilience. And because of that, he has not had to lower interest rates again, which he could do if he feels the economy is getting weaker to stimulate the economy. Our bank governor continued his statement saying consumption is still growing. It's growing modestly. It's certainly being restrained by uncertainty caused by tariffs, but it is growing, and we expect it to continue through the third and fourth quarters. Now, he's a realist, and he looks at all the data, and he's put it in perspective quite well here. Macklem told reporters that the Bank of Canada would expect the economy to keep growing even with today's tariffs in place, but it'll be on a permanently lower path. Unfortunately, he said, the reality is that tariffs mean the economy is going to work less efficiently. And that's a realistic way of putting it. It's surprising that our economy is still growing, or at least not declining. And if it does continue to grow, it'll probably be on a lower trajectory because the tariffs will just slow down growth as money is sucked out of the economy. And it'll slow down growth more in the United States than it does in Canada because their economy is going to be burdened with paying all the tariffs. They're paying the import taxes. We are suffering from decreased demand for our exports. TD Bank economist Mark Ercolao conceded it's a bit of a surprise to see the economy holding up against a massive disruption from Canada's largest trading partner. Many months ago, ourselves, as well as other economic forecasters, had an outlook for a much weaker Canadian economy. Obviously, that isn't manifesting now. Now, here's another key point that's made by BMO chief economist Doug Porter. He said in a note to clients on Friday that Ottawa's personal tax cut at the start of the month and robust demand for domestic travel, remember that, robust demand for domestic travel amid the trade war will boost the economy this quarter, as will the less dire sentiment around economic factors. And this is a key factor that I think a lot of economists missed. And it's one that's hard to quantify because it's not something that could be just modeled easily. What tends to happen when economists model something is they model the hard numbers. The US is going to impose 25% tariffs And economists will model the effects of that. It'll affect the exporting country by decreasing demand for their products by X%. It'll affect the importing country by increasing prices in that country by X%. And it'll slow down economic growth by X%. And they'll make some forecasts. But those type of forecasts don't take into account, well, how will that affect the way people think? How will that affect how people behave? I'll give you an example. A few years ago, the United States imposed tariffs on Canada. They imposed a certain percentage tariff, import tax, on Canadian lumber. How did that affect the psyche within Canada? 2 years ago, when you were at the grocery store trying to decide whether you're going to buy Canadian apples or US apples, were you thinking about lumber tariffs? No. But now let's fast forward to today. The US is imposing tariffs on specific sectors in Canada. But they came along with a lot of rhetoric, insults, and hostility, calling our prime minister the governor, threatening to annex us, talking about wanting to make Canada the 51st state, being rude and obnoxious and hostile toward our country, to the point where the president of the United States himself is personally responsible for about 40 million people in Canada despising him and galvanizing our public sentiment to the point where many Canadians, on the order of millions of us, do care whether we buy Canadian apples or American apples, and on the order of millions of us that will not step foot in that country now. That shift and galvanization of our public sentiment, the way we think about things now, that is in the forefront of our minds in everything we do now. Most of our provinces won't import American alcohol. When Canadians are choosing where to go on holiday, we're choosing Canada. We're not going to the United States. And let me explain this, because some people that can't see past their nose or their brains can't expand their way of thinking beyond their tightly fitting baseball caps. This is a huge economic effect, and I'm going to explain it really simply here now. If a Canadian chooses to go on holiday and spend $1 in the United States, that adds 0 to Canada's GDP and does 0 for Canada's economy. If a Canadian chooses to stay in Canada, whether he's on holiday or not, and spend that $1 in Canada, it doesn't just add $1 to our GDP. It doesn't just get tabulated as $1 more spent in Canada. Let me explain here. You choose Canada, you go on holiday in Canada. You spend money at a restaurant in Canada. Millions of other Canadians are doing the same thing. They're choosing Canada and they're spending money. And this one particular restaurant sees an increase in business. Now that restaurant owner has seen more business, he has more money, more profit that he's made. And he's always wanted to expand his patio and try and lure more customers in. And now he has the money. So he hires some local workers to build his patio. And he uses Canadian lumber for the floor. He uses Canadian steel for the nice railing that he's got planned. And what he's done is he's taken those dollars that stayed in Canada and he's using them again, to build his patio. He's given those dollars to Canadian businesses and Canadian workers to build the patio for him. Now those businesses and workers have those extra dollars, that extra work and extra profit, and they're going to spend those dollars on something else. And there's been studies done on the ripple effect of how much does $1 of spending in a country, how much does that multiply in the GDP and in the economy? And that's a hard thing to figure out. It's kind of a fluid thing, because in normal times, it would be very likely that people just continue with the way they've been always spending their money. Some people going to the United States for holidays, some people staying here, and not much of a ripple effect. But when millions and millions of Canadians do this en masse, when we all focus and do it together, that ripple effect number will multiply over and over and over again. And you could have the situation where $1 extra spent in Canada means $7 or $8 extra added into the Canadian GDP, as that money is spent over and over and over again within our country. This is a massive thing, and it doesn't just affect the tourism industry. What choosing Canada does is, rather than export our dollars to the United States and let those dollars ripple through their economy, we en masse keep the dollars here and let those dollars ripple through our economy. Why would a Canadian want to go and spend his hard-earned money in the United States, a country that's hostile to us? Why would you want to go to Disney World? Fuck Mickey Mouse. I just made myself laugh. And for those of you who are viewing from Quebec that maybe didn't get the joke that I just inadvertently blurted out, let me repeat it for you in Quebecois. Why should Quebecer go to visit Disneyland? Mange la merde, le topo Mickey. Okay, you have to have some levity in these videos, okay? Okay, I'm gonna cut right here because I can't stop laughing. So the conclusion is, don't underestimate the power that we all have as individuals, because all of us can choose Canada. I just got my shirt. It's really nice. Don't underestimate how powerful that is. It's obvious that the multiplier effect is much higher than economists had predicted, and that's because we are galvanized with national pride now. There are millions and millions and millions of us that would rather have our hard-earned money circulate through our economy and benefit ourselves than to give it to a hostile nation south of us. So in this video, I thought I would just present those statements from real economists, the top one being the governor of the Bank of Canada, and some top economists from some of our banks, what they are saying about our economy. Because remember, you'll be swimming in a sea of BS if you just peruse the regular media, as everyone tries to spin these things either positively or negatively, depending on what their point of view is. I try and present to you a balanced and thoughtful portrayal of what's going on. And if things get worse or get rough, or if the Americans escalate the conflict, there may be a time when the economic numbers start looking much worse. And perhaps the Bank of Canada will have to think about lowering interest rates. But we're not there yet. The Canadian economy and Canadian resiliency is doing just fine. So thanks for watching, everybody. Subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content and you want to see more. Leave some comments in the comment section. We have a very vibrant comment section. Your comments are so thoughtful, and I read many of them, and I like how you are all interacting together. Consider checking out the I Choose Canada merch. I don't usually plug the merch in the videos, but I like the shirt. I just got it, and I like it. If you want to support the channel monetarily on a monthly basis, click the join button. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will catch you all on the next one.